would like to do a short recording on your lab notebook for this semester, and just to give you an idea and a reference as to my expectations. So you do not need to buy a formal lab notebook. As you see here, I have two examples. You can buy a composition notebook. That's like this on the left. That would be okay. Or you can buy a spiral notebook. And if you already have one of these types of notebook at home, you can use one. You don't have to buy one new. So what I am looking for is a notebook like the spiral or the composition where the pages don't fall out. You do not need to purchase a notebook that is specially designed for lab. So you don't have to it doesn't have to be a great expense. What I want us to learn how to do is to keep our pre-lab and post-lab questions and our data all in an organized notebook. So that's what we're going to be working on this semester. So the first lab is the measurement lab, and I went over that, but this video is specific to how you're going to record things in your notebook. So in each lab, you will have a section that says prepare your notebook. And this is the checklist. These are the things that you need to include in that particular lab in your notebook. So this one is for the measurement lab. So you see it there, it says include the measurement lab in the table of contents. Okay, so what that means is when you get your notebook, you need to create a table of contents. And this will be the first page in your notebook. And you will probably only need one page for the entire semester as your table of contents, because we're doing 9 labs, so I think you should be okay with one page. So here on this next slide, in class I showed what it might look like. Notice that I'm not perfect, right? I left out the T initially in contents. It doesn't have to be error-free, but we do want to be able to read it. So I have the table of contents. I've identified that page right here. You can write little subtitles if you want to put like the title and then the pages here. That's optional. That's up to you. And then you're going to start writing your labs. And you may even want to number them, like you could do like 1 if you want to. Again, that numbering would be optional. But what you must do, which is not optional, is to write the title of the lab and then the pages that lab is on in your notebook. Now notice I'm using an old composition book that already had the pages numbered. So I'm not going to cross those out and start out with 1. I'm just going to start here on page 29, and so I'll be referring to those pages in my lab manual. So you can see here I've already shown that I started on page 31. We'll take a look at that in a minute. Now notice at this moment, I did not have a page that I ended on because I haven't finished the lab. So you won't be able to say how many pages until you're actually done with the lab. So I just did this. I included the measurement lab in the table of contents. Said write the title and the lab at the top of the page. Okay, so now we're going to start the lab. So I turned the lab to the next page in my lab notebook. And here's the title. Now I put a box around it. You may want to just underline it. You could just underline it. Or maybe you just want to leave it there as a title. Again, I do want a title, but whether you put a box around it or underline it or don't do either of those, that's up to you. And then I put the date. So this says when I started working in my lab. Now this can be working in the lab room, or it can just be what we're doing now, getting ready and prepared for lab. So anytime you're working in the notebook, you just simply write down the date. So I dated and numbered the page. My pages were already pre-numbered. So if yours wasn't, then you would need to write the number in your book that you're on. And you can write that in the upper, like you see here. Mine have the pages. So there's my page 31. That's why I say here on the table of contents that I started on page 31. But if you didn't have that, you might not count the table of contents as the first page, and then you would just write the page number here. You can also write it, again, this is your notebook. You can write the page numbers in the bottom or the page numbers in the middle on the bottom. So you can choose. Again, I am writing the 31. I'm using 31 because my book was already numbered. So, and then it says sign in your lab notebook each time you stop working. So when we stop working, we're just going to sign it. I do that too. Then number 4, record the purpose of the experiment in your own words. So each lab, you will review the lab, and then you will record what you're supposed to be doing. Like not the details, not the specific steps, but what's the overall idea? Like why do you think you're doing this lab? And so I made one for us in class for this first one. I just said to learn how to make measurements using different equipment in the lab and to make measurements to the correct precision. So those were the 2 things I came away with as I read the lab. Notice I could maybe add a little more specific, but it doesn't have to be specific. It's the overall idea. If there's a question we're trying to answer, like maybe in the density lab, we're trying to calculate density. So maybe that's what I would put there. So that's the purpose. And then number 5 says indicate the PPE. So if you notice, then I wrote the PPE and I said goggles or safety glasses, and you don't have to put both. If you own safety glasses, you could write safety glasses. If you own goggles, write goggles. You don't have to put both. Then I said a lab apron or a lab coat. Again, you can do whichever you have, and then closed-toed shoes. So really steps 1 through 5 will be the same in every single lab. So the first page of everybody's lab for each time will always have this information on the top. Then you go, now these numbers below 5 sometimes change. So this lab has pre-lab questions. Here you can see here it says pre-lab questions, and here only the first one is showing. But it says answer the pre-lab questions, record the answers only in your notebook. So I would go, and now I have pre-lab questions. And you don't have to write, you could write questions or not. You don't have to write the answers. And so, you don't have to write the questions. And so you'll be answering it here like that. So I didn't answer the pre-lab. Okay, and so then up to this point, let's say in class I said, okay, I stopped. I worked on that and then I stopped, and then you're supposed to sign it. I also dated it again. I think this you wouldn't have to do because we dated it here. So you don't have to date it. Then when we go into lab, you're going to write the date again. If you don't work until lab, you'll write the date again. Now let's say, for example, I stopped. I only did the purpose in the PPE. Then I would sign below here, and then the next day, let's say today, or I picked it up, I could say 9/9/21. I would date it. So every time you finish, sign your name. You can draw a little line, and then when you start up again, just put the date. So by Monday's class, you need to have 1 through 6 already in your lab notebook. Okay, the pre-lab has to be done before lab. I want you to come to class even if you haven't done it, but you will be doing things correctly if you come to class with your pre-lab completed. Now, number 7, you possibly could also do. There's 5 tables in your procedure, and you're going to be writing the data tables in your notebook. So if you want to create data tables before lab, you can. I found when I first did this lab notebook for my virtual classes, I did this. The first time I did it, I drew all the tables in the lab, and then when I went to do the lab, I tried to fill them in. But personally, I got a little frustrated because my tables never were the right size for what I was recording. So preparing the tables could be something that you do once you get into lab. And then finally, complete the post-lab questions. This will be something you do after you've completed the lab. You will either do them in lab if you and your partner would like to and you have time, or you can do this outside of lab and finish it in your lab notebook after class is complete. And then once your lab is complete, so you'll get the data in lab, and then once you have finished your reflective questions or post-lab questions, then you will scan all of the pages for the measurement lab, including the table of contents. So you'll scan the table of contents and then the whatever pages are your measurement lab. You'll scan them, save them as a PDF, and then upload that file into the measurement assignment in Canvas. So hopefully that gives you a little idea where to start. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to help you. You can send me an email, or I'm happy to help you in class. I know at first these kind of things always feel a little confusing, but once we do them a couple of times, you will become a pro at doing the lab in the lab notebook. So let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to working in lab with you.